Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel Blue Lotus. My name is Cindy. I'm an energetic stepping wholeness counselor and I'm here again with Patrick Moulin. Patrick and I have done our latest video discussing his book, The Little Book of Oneness. And during that conversation, we actually said that it would be a good idea to actually look at the current situation or current chaos or crisis that the world is in. We did not know how long it would take for us to go back to making a video, and apparently didn't take so much time. So here we are again. So in this conversation, I do not really have questions. So we will take this on the flow and make this a spontaneous video. So Patrick, I will leave it up to you.
Yes, you mentioned that we didn't quite know when we will do this video. I would like to approach this from perhaps a bit an unusual perspective. The world situation can be viewed as from a three-dimensional perspective. Let's call this the theater stage. The viewers who have seen the previous video about the book, The Little Book of Oneness, we did say that there is much more to reality than just what you perceive with the physical senses and or the physical body. You are much more than that. And likewise, we need to be aware that there's more going on than what we can actually see that is printed in the media or social media or somewhere else. So therefore we say, let's layer this. So we have the three-dimensional perspective. This is like a theater stage, a cocoon, and you have different actors there. And we can look into each of these main major actors. There are so many more, but to limit it just to a few, it makes it more practical. Then we zoom out and we look at this from perhaps, you could say, a spiritual perspective, a bit removed from the detailed happenings day to day of what we call the story on the theater stage. And then there's yet another level, another layer, and we will touch upon that too. So what you see is we look at it from different perspectives. And let's go into the first one. The first one is the theater stage. The theater stage has different main actors. Now you have on one hand governments, you have the people, the masses of people in a society. Then you have so-called science, you could say. You have science pertaining to the medical field, and you have associated science that gives an opinion about what is going on. And then you have some other actors that are from the economic side. So we will look at that too. So, and maybe something still pops up that needs to be mentioned too, and I won't mention it. And if at any time you want to ask questions, just go ahead. So let's look at these main actors. And remember, this is the theater stage. And I will use language within the theater stage, what we will commonly apply. And so it's as if, remember, you're cosmic, coming into this 3D experience, 3D world, to experience life here. So let's zoom in. And now you're in the theater stage. And now you see this situation right now that is unfolding before your eyes. Now, what to make of this? From within this perspective. And then we zoom out and look at it from a bigger picture. So let's get in. You have the situation of pandemic. And for that matter, just to give you perspective, every year there's pandemic going on in the nature of the flu. The flu travels around the globe several times every single year. Nobody talks about pandemic in this regard. It's just a given. There's flu season coming in autumn to winter, and then goes like this. People got used to this and continue with their life. They do some certain precautions, keeping up the immune system, etc. Now comes this one, and this COVID-19. And we do not go into, in this video, I don't want to go into whether this was artificially created or not. We just pick up the trail from it's on the stage. Okay, now it's on the theater stage. It popped up, boom. It's more revealing what comes from this, how this unfolds from there. Now let's briefly look at the data. So let's take the actors from the science side. The data. Initially, the data was used to project something with this virus. Projection of what? Of big damage, big amount of people dying, and a big threat, you could say. And this originally came from some work done at the Imperial College in London, and some others chipped in too. But it's based on a data model of projection. Now these models, data models to project, is commonly used in science, but it is also known by scientists that this is rarely really accurate. It's just a helper model to get started with something that is not quite known yet. One tries to understand. So, so that was the initial thing. Now you have, once this was out, then you have the media around the globe. Interesting enough, never questioned anything all the way. It's as if this one voice, the media was focusing on fanning this with fear, that people should be aware this is a problem. And then you have another actor. This is in the form of World Health Organization, and certain have institutes like the Robert Koch Institute in Germany or the CDC in the US that give official recommendations as to do what, and give also data. So they chipped into this too. And the World Health Organization was going for drastic measures, recommending drastic measures. Initially hesitated briefly, and something happens behind the scenes. And then they switched 180 degrees and they went for drastic measures. And so that got recommended to the governments. Now, interesting enough, most governments bought into this and quickly went along with these drastic measures. There were a few governments who were hesitant on this, and we will get to them in a moment, but just a handful, you could say. Maybe I forgot one or the other, but it's essentially in Asia, it's Taiwan, it's Japan, to a degree, also Korea, South Korea, and then in Europe we have Sweden. They didn't quite buy into this approach of drastic measures to create quarantine and locking down a country. So they went their way. So that was the stage or the perspective from what the governments would do. most would do drastic quarantining measures, and the media kept fanning on this as well. So you have these actors. This was more in the beginning stages. Now, as time went on, more data became available, and that is actual data. It's not projection anymore. And in the actual data, what we have is that this type of virus is similar in terms of spreading to like a flu. Its mortality rate is similar in terms of a flu season. What do they make of this now? The same actors on that theater stage. Now, let's look at the governments again. And mind you, let's look briefly at this before that. Let's look at the scientists, okay? Mm-hmm. So now data becomes increasingly available, and it becomes increasingly indisputable that this is not as bad as initially projected. In fact, it is massively not as bad as initially projected. Even the Centers of Disease Control, the CDC, who was taking a hard stance, keeps correcting downwards the mortality rate, currently at 0.2%, but it's even less than that with more data available, and meaning it is similar to that of a flu mortality rate. Now, if we look more into that type of data, then what you see is for a normal person who is normally healthy, the probability of such a person to die from this virus is close to 0. It's similar to a flu. How many people die yearly from a flu? It's, again, percentage-wise, in terms of all the millions out there, close to 0. So it's similar to that. So when it's similar to that, and that's even in the older age bracket, if they are reasonably healthy and do something for their health and for their immune system, most of them, even in the older generation, older age bracket, they will find mild to no symptoms of working out that virus. That's how immune system works. It encounters constantly something, and it learns from it and builds antibodies and works through it. That's how immune system works. If you isolate the immune system, it cannot work in that way, so it stays weak. It needs the information, you could say, to process and build the sufficient antibodies. Now, having said that, one can say any from the science side, from the data, any drastic measure is not supported from the data. It means there's no need for any drastic measures at all. That includes face masks, social distancing, and you name it. Why? Because let's say somebody has a flu. What do people do? Naturally, they stay a little bit away from that person. The person who has the flu, what does he or she do? They stay at home briefly until the system normalizes and they come out again. It's common sense. So with this one, with this virus, those who are more affected, yes, they need to separate themselves a bit longer than just 2 or 3 days. But there are also flu types where a person is at home for a full week, 7 days, or even more, depending on how well their body functions. So all in all these artificially fanned germ phobia, this artificial virus phobia that has been promoted by the media, the actor on the stage, the media, they still keep going in this. Is not warranted for, simply not. And so then that begs the question, why are governments still going for such measures of quarantining, social distancing, and wearing face masks? Why are they still doing it if the science shows it's actually not supportable anymore to do this overkill reaction? So that brings up all the questions. And so you have these actors. Now we haven't talked about the masses. Now the masses in all of this is confused and is in fear. And when somebody is in fear, you can say anything because they cannot think properly anymore. That's in itself a science. When somebody is in fear, the frontal cortex is not in the same function anymore as when the person is relaxed. You can't process data efficiently anymore as before. And therefore, if somebody is in fear, you can, in quote, manipulate such a person more easily. Or in the good way, you could say, help such a person more easily. Mm-hmm. So what you have is two narratives that the masses perceive. One is that of help, and the other narrative is that of manipulation. So the governments, of course, insist on this is all meant for help, and to help quarantining and to help the people. They should wear face masks. It just turns out that they are like suddenly interested in massively helping people, reducing their actions so that they stay, quote, healthy. That's one narrative. The other narrative is that occurs in the masses, in some subsections in the masses of the people in society, is, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense because the science doesn't support it. There are a lot of question marks, a lot of contradictions. What's going on? This serves more. A manipulation, a massive manipulation of seizing more control within society over the members of society, over the people, you could say. So suddenly the perspective there is that of a control issue. Now, the control issue is still there in the official narrative of governments and media, that of control. We need to control this virus. We need to control that people stay healthy. It's all about control. So you have two things. One is, quote, from a helping perspective, control. The other is manipulating perspective, that control is being executed. So in short, what you have is a big discussion about control on the theater stage. It's all about control. Now you could then say, okay, what's the objective behind? Now that's a rabbit hole that one could go very far. We don't have the time for this. But let's look then at another actor we haven't talked much about, and that is the economy. On one hand, due to quarantine, the economy is suffering because shops are forcibly closed, or only open to a limited degree. Unemployment has started to go up in many countries, except for those very few countries that never had quarantine. But those countries still take a dip because international trade is reduced. So if they are an export-oriented nation, then yes, they would also suffer. But as far as import or let's say local market production for local markets is concerned, they still continue. So that's one side. The other side, economy, is you can always ask yourself who would stand to benefit from all of this. And that touches upon the medical and the pharmaceutical industry. Now, in the medical side, hospitals suffer in many countries because they are being reduced to treat only this type of, let's say, they bring somebody into a hospital that has COVID symptoms, which is in itself debatable, but let's say they come in with this. They need to be treated. And but they cannot treat somebody who is scheduled for heart surgery or for other types of
illnesses,
health treatments. It all has to wait, unless it's life and death immediately. Then, like emergency, yes, they have to attend to that. But all the rest has to wait. But many of these hospitals where such drastic measures were taken, they are more than half empty. And so it begs the question, what is going on? Why is that? So in that sense, you could say they suffer. They had to let go of doctors, nurses, and so on. They suffer. But there are still some people who gain. And let's take on the pharmaceutical industry, those who develop the vaccines. Because there is this narrative to push for a vaccine for this, so for this virus, and have vaccinated the majority of the population. They would like to vaccinate everyone if they can, and so from one side you could say that's a big market. And actually, the vaccination market is estimated to explode into multiple tens of billions of dollars to benefit from this. So that is something you could say, yeah, okay, somebody stands to benefit from this. But if you go into the rabbit hole, it goes further. Rabbit hole and dive a bit deeper and dig deeper what's going on. That's not all of it. That's definitely not all of it. And this is now the part that brings us back to control. It goes even further. So on the surface, yes, they benefit when they can sell more vaccines. Whether they are needed or not, we have not even touched upon whether this is useful or not. But what's behind vaccinating as many people as possible? There are these programs available that show that there is actually a bigger picture to this. And that is part of an initiative called ID, digital passport and digital IDing. And this is not something that is discussed in one company somewhere in a city. No, these are programs that are being discussed on United Nations level, and World Health Organization is part of it. And then there are other players that feed into this, those who develop programs. So what is the idea behind? Officially, when you would go to their website, the narrative can be positive or negative. So on the positive side, the way they try to project this is, we want to give everybody an opportunity to have identification, so that they can have, for example, a bank account. So they have access to bank accounts because they have identified more than 1 billion people in the world cannot even qualify for any of this if they don't have proper IDing. So they want to give them a chance to have that opportunity. Why? There could be a host of benefits. For example, microfinancing of projects in the third world, they could have access to this because they are properly ID'd and they have bank account, etc. This goes further than that. One can say one could better monitor their health also. So what does that mean? If people have, when they have proper IDing, they can be taken up in a database, and then their health records are there, so they can be better, in that sense, tracked in a positive way. And so this is how this is being portrayed on officially on UN on UN programs side. So now we have the other side. Now this is going further than that. Digital IDing is something that has to do with tying up to you individually your information, whether you have been vaccinated or not, your entire medical records, your entire banking records, your entire working history, living history, where you lived, etc. All of that tied into one database, all of it available. And this can be administered in a digital way through some form of nanotechnology that actually it functions a bit like a tattooing on you. So it's an injection, and you have that information on you, and this can then be used to identify you. Now you can see the potential of abuse there, and the gate is wide open for abuse, and privacy is sent out of the window in this way, because until now there is a privilege of doctor-client confidentiality, doctor-patient confidentiality. This is going down the drain because all of the data is now available to everyone associated in these United Nations digital ID programs. And this means control again. Now, how can you use that for control? Well, if you institute, again, for it's all for your good, that's the positive thing. It's stated, it's all for your safety and for your well-being. We can then control whether you have been vaccinated, then you can travel. Or you can actually go back to your workplace. This is not invented, this is from their websites. You can go, it's easy, you have this information, and so yes, you can go back to your workplace. You can go back, you can go and travel. You can spin this further. You can even, if you want to have it more fine-grained to control, yes, then you're allowed to go shopping. Then you're allowed to go to a restaurant. Why? Quote, you will not infect others because you have been vaccinated. So what you see is a very laid out way of control of a citizen. Privacy is down the drain, out of the window. But not just that. What about freedom of choice? That's the big issue, the big debate. And if you can hook this, or you could say, if you can accelerate this type of program on top of the current virus crisis, you would try to do this if you are a proponent of this type of future. And that's what's been done. Those who are wanting to bring this forward, they are not happy if you have herd immunity. Herd immunity is if the people in society naturally have built already the antibodies, sufficient numbers were, quote, infected by the COVID virus and have built their antibodies, and it's done. You don't need more, it's done. So then that would mean you don't need the vaccine anymore. There's immunity. So, for example, one of the main proponents to this type of future with global vaccination and global IDing and control is Bill Gates, because he has through his foundation, he has his hands in everywhere, you could say. And so in the theater stage, you have, I single out now one person, Bill Gates, but there are others, who have a big influence on the World Health Organization. And due to the fact that he has been sponsoring the World Health Organization projects for quite a number of years, and he is now, with the US now pulling out of support currently, he has become the biggest sponsor of the World Health Organization, and that is ahead of UK. So you would then have to, and this is one can check this data. This is available. It's not that this is something of a secret. You just track how the Bill Gates Foundation spends its money, or you can go on the World Health Organization side and see how they receive money. What money? How was it used for? And then you see who is receiving the money. It's all there. So. So now you have him being the main sponsor of the World Health Organization. Yeah, of course he wants to bring in his ideas into this, and therefore the World Health Organization is fundamentally not a neutral organization. It cannot do neutral science or look at neutral science. It is following an agenda. Why? Because you have to follow what, you have to also serve the hand that feeds you, you could say. Mm-hmm. And that is reality. So now Bill Gates himself, through his foundation, has a hand in the vaccine industry, but also in the tech industry that is involved in providing the technology for digital IDing and so on. So again, this is not something that is invented. It's all out there. You can look it up. And so what you see is, if you go down into this rabbit hole of control, yes, there are these activities going on for a number of years already. And so on the theater stage, the major theme is that of control. And control of population growth, control of health, control of economy, control of movement, control of this and that. And the vaccine is then not so much, or you could say the vaccine has been receiving additional function. In the past, in the old days, you could say vaccination was just for a specific virus, and then that was it. And it was optional, but recommended, depending on how severe this is. Then gradually more vaccines were invented. But now vaccine serves as a carrier for IDing, for identification, digital identification through nanotechnology, or chipping, you could say, although it's not a classical microchip, but it's chipping. And this technology is being developed, and it's intended to be implemented. So vaccine is not anymore just a vaccine, it's more. It serves IDing for the purpose of tagging and controlling. So this is a difference you could say this is a different perspective on control, is a different agenda that is suddenly unraveling behind the current crisis. It would make sense now, suddenly, that those who want to follow this agenda want to keep in the society the fear level up so that they can justify the quarantining. The quarantining now suddenly serves something else, to prevent as much as possible that there is a herd immunity in society. Because if society is immune, where is the vaccine going? You don't need it. And then all this tagging starts to fall apart because they can't vaccinate you. Yeah, they can do it optionally, and some people will do, but you don't have an argument any longer of mass vaccinations. Why? It's gone. The flu is gone. So likewise with this, it's receding and it's gone. So what are they doing now? Let's go back to the industry and the vaccine industry also. They try to develop as fast as possible this vaccine, so they can still catch the train that is leaving in terms of the virus is receding, and then they can vaccinate the people because the topic is still current. So they fast track it, and this is highly risky. So the medical side there are two narratives there on the medical side, on the theater stage, the medical side. Two narratives. One that stands to benefit from it, and then you have a lot of others who warn against this fast tracking as too risky. And they don't even talk about the tagging aspect. They just talk about the sheer untested vaccinations. And so this is where currently the situation is. And on the theater stage, the script is such that it is at the moment not certain which way this whole thing is going. And the viewer is in the middle of this. So the viewer to this video analysis is in the middle of this. Where are we going with this? And we can say for the viewer, when you hear the three-dimensional perspective, is it's good you have a critical mind to all these developments, and you need to voice your opinion. You cannot sit on the fence. Let's look at a bit more at the masses. You have different sections there. You have the people who are in fear. We mentioned due to the media that is tied in with this, they are not anymore reporting in a neutral way that is long gone. They are like promoters of something. And so they have been feeding into this fear and keeping it up and justifying this is all necessary, the quarantining and all. So you have a section in the society that believes all this and is in fear. Now, this doesn't come by itself. They had already carried fear in themselves. They have, you could say, not learned to connect and center within themselves. Because if they would do, they would find actually that fear dissolves. That actually they are, and we come back to this, they are actually more than the body. And it ties in with our previous discussion about dying.
Yeah.
So they are more than the body. Fear goes. So, but they have not learned that. So they are the ones who are most prone to this, I call it manipulation. And so you have that section. And they need to be helped if they are willing to listen. And helped means simply work on that you don't have fear any longer. Only then can you start maintaining different perspectives on the current crisis. So that's one section. Now you have the other section. They have already gone to that process. They are more centered. They are less fearful. So they don't necessarily buy into this, what is being portrayed by the media or the governments. Now, in that group, you have people who just disagree and go about their business. They question the validity of these measures, quarantining, social distancing, and perhaps also the face mask. Now that also comes out more increasingly that this is counterproductive than giving anything. So then you have another group, they are more noisy, you could say. They voice it, they say, wait a minute, there's a lot of wrong things going on here and contradictions. And they voice their discontent, either through social media or increasingly so going into the streets and use the civil, they still have some liberties, and organize protest walks in the streets to whatever place they want to go, to just show we are not agreeing with this, with the lockdown or with this measure or that measure. So that is what you have in the society, different groupings. Then you have another grouping. I would like to single them out also because they are the ones who also are maintaining the perspective that yes, there's something off here, but they are into, let's say, alternative practices, spiritual practices. What is interesting there is some section of that type of that group would not like to deal with this. They just focus on their inner happiness, and they want to focus on helping others to stay happy. And that's perfectly all right. That's perfectly all right, because it takes away the fear. They help in that process to take away the fear. But then there are also those who, on one hand, do that, but on the other hand, still carry fear. And they would rather go with some of these measures that the government proposes than face their own fear. So you have there a mixed bag of people, you could say. And in the end of the day, it is like this on the theater stage with these different actors. They've collectively formed an energy soup, or you could say a collective consciousness, collectively. And what is being worked out there is control issues, trust issues, trust in life issues, fear issues. All of it is there. And related to that, of course, is that of tolerance, compassion, and love. It's both. So this is where it stands right now on the theater stage. We have these actors that are playing their roles in society. Does that make sense for the moment?
Yes.
Or you have a question there?
No, I'm listening to you with full fascination. I can follow it completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's move out. Let's go to the next layer. We touched upon collective consciousness. Let's zoom out from the theater stage and look at, from a more energetic perspective, what is going on here. What's going on is, if you would take the chakra system, 7, let's say, perspective of 7 chakras, is a working out on a collective layer in collective consciousness, is also having a chakra system, or reflects the functions of a chakra system in the collective consciousness. What happens there is work on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd chakra. This is what happens there on the collective consciousness. The collective consciousness works to clear these 3, or balance these three, only then the fourth chakra can fully open.
Yes.
The heart chakra. And from there onwards. So what is happening is we're in the middle of some shifting. And if this comes out well, we have a jump in society into a really good direction.
Yeah.
But we are in the middle of in this struggle to balancing first, second, third chakra. Why is that? First chakra is, as I mentioned perhaps in the previous video, is about establishing yourself here fully to embrace this reality without fear. Second chakra is about the creativity. It's about all the possibilities that you can take up in this reality that you have come into. The third is that about trust and control. When the third is balanced, it means you start to flow in a direction. You pick up from your field of infinite creativity and you start to pick a direction and you flow. Third chakra is about flow. And then when that happens, when the experience of flow happens, if the third chakra is balanced, you trust the flow. And you're not like, there's no control issue there. You trust the flow. But when the third is not balanced, you could say calamity could strike at any moment. That's on one end. The other end of imbalance is you are victimizing yourself to external circumstances. You are never responsible for anything. It's always something outside of your quote control that happens to you. So these are two endpoints, you could say, in imbalanced third chakra. But that happens also on the collective consciousness layer. And this is where we are at in society. It's a struggle there. It's a struggle there. Fear of life, fear of phobia of any virus. Well, guess what? There are trillions of bacteria and viruses already around all the time. The immune system is not from today, just from yesterday. It has evolved over millennia. It knows what to do. It has brought us to here, naturally. So that means the collective needs to experience trust again in life, needs to experience that control over nature is not possible on that level. It's not. Unless they devolve. Now, this has to do also with free will. Control and free will are, you could say, in a way, diametrically opposite. For collective consciousness, meaning that reflects the level of society, or the evolution of society as a whole, is that if society wants to evolve further, you cannot suppress free will for the sake of control. That's a devolution, not an evolution, but a devolution, or you could say delaying evolution of that human race. So this is at the moment, if you take away, like take a step back and you look at the theater stage from a distance and you say, this is what collectively is currently going on. And you could dig into, but why are, coming back to the third layer, to the three-dimensional layer that we discussed before, why are they so rushing this? We don't need to go there. It's sufficient to say, this is currently the struggle reflected in the collective consciousness. And when that is settled in a positive way, Then comes the next step of evolution in society for that human race. Now let's take another step. Let's go further back.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go one step further. That brings us back to the individual. Now, the individual is, as we said in the previous video, you are all powerful. You are the creator of all there is. That's the oneness perspective. So if you are all powerful, for you, control issue is non-existent. What you see on the theater stage will not affect you. You have to go through it because you are currently incarnated in this timeline and associated in this way through your body with the collective consciousness and society. But it will not affect you. And I have to say, vaccinations will not affect you. It's too late. While vaccinations should be avoided due to all kinds of risks associated, your state of consciousness is already experienced when you have made that jump into oneness, when you experience that higher state of awareness. Then even a vaccination will not take that away, unless you become a vegetable for some health complication. That's another story. But let's say in the normal case, you might even digest the poison. But to get there is what you must do. So there are two things for the individual. What can the individual do? What the viewer who watches this, what can you do with this? Focus on cultivating the stillness, because you need that for combating the fear that is projected in society. When you are in the in this theater stage in the 3D world, and you move around and you move within an ocean of fear waves, what can you do? You need to go to the bottom of your core, that is your stillness, the now, presence. Cultivate this experience. This is a must. It's not just an option. It's a must if you really want to go through this smoothly. Find something that really gives you that experience. Cultivate your nervous system to gradually more spontaneously uphold that experience while you are doing your things in the day. And in the background, you still have that experience of presence. That is, you could say, the experience of your cosmic nature. It's coexisting, you could say, it's overlapping with your waking state, consciousness, interacting with people, with work, etc. But still you have that in addition, that awareness. That's number one. This needs to be done. Don't delay, as simple as that. Number two, simply don't buy into all the fear mongering. Don't buy into the official narrative unless you have done your own reflections on it. What guides you in this process? Your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can be bewildering what kind of information is being presented to you. And the truth is more in what is being omitted in an information than what is said. How would you know? This is on one hand, if you follow it only through the intellect, it's very time consuming, because you have to go everywhere and check very deep in every detail, whatever is available, and try to make sense of this. And you might not be an expert in everything either. How do you make sense of this? How can you walk through this? Connect to your intuition is the way out of this. There's a lot of deception and manipulation going on, and then there are half-truths and truths that try to portray what companies have stated, what this person has stated, that person, etc. It's a mess. Some people call this information war. But how do you navigate through this? Intuition. This is, you cannot corrupt that source, but you have to connect to intuition to be able to navigate through this. Because then when you really are connected to your intuition, to that deep inner knowing, you know what makes sense and what not. Anything that is in favor of control, of non-life supporting, of non-free will, of this or that, you would just know, you spot it. They don't even need to say it. You just know. Anything that promotes fear, it's a vibration. They don't even need to say it in words, but it's underlying it. You would spot it. It's like once that switch is done, it's like the curtain has fallen and you immediately spot it. But you need to connect to that intuition. So cultivate your intuition. Now that's number 2. Now in the first we said cultivate the stillness, the presence. Well, guess what? That also helps you to be more intuitive because you connect to your core. And that helps you to connect to your intuition more. Also, connected to intuition is working with your heart. The feeling, what does that subtle feeling tell you? You have to put something up for that. And for this, we would recommend, and there are other things, but we would recommend, as we mentioned in the previous video, the heart exercise. But there are other things. For example, if you take up practices that hone your experience or that refine your experience of your energetic body, the energy flows. The Qigong, Tai Chi, for example, there are others. You become increasingly more sensitive to your own body, to the reactions of your own body, to the energetic aspect of your own body, to your subtle reactions within. That helps you to connect more easily to intuition. So there are a host of other activities that could be taken up, but just for the simplicity, this would be the things you need to seriously look at to navigate through these times. And if you do, life is easier for you. Now, interesting enough, let's go to the second layer, the collective awareness. Because if you do your homework in this way, you will influence the collective consciousness. You will influence it in a positive way. Another drop, another drop, another drop, another drop. And suddenly, the mass of people don't buy into, let's say, non-life supporting agendas. They just say no, that's enough. And if the mass say no, what can the minority do? It's just that now it feels like you have to start today. Better you had started yesterday, but you have to start because it's highest time. It's highest time. Now, for humanity as a whole, this is an opportunity. It's a big opportunity because we can accelerate the evolution of the race as a whole. If that happens, everybody makes a jump into more connectedness. Society as such will be reflected in a different way. Will be more coherent, more harmonious, more life supporting, and so on, ecological, naturally. So this is the opportunity. but you cannot sit on the fence and keep watching it. When you do that, you support the imbalance rather than the balance, because you have not voiced yourself. You belong to the, you could say in that way, to the mass of people that can be manipulated or coerced into something, because you have not voiced yourself. You have not done anything. So you will fall victim eventually to these programs if you simply stay on the fence. You have to get active. That's the key. So the collective consciousness is a mere reflection of the sum total of its parts. And you are part of the whole. So do something. But that's meant in a positive way. So this is what the individual can do. Now there are some, they say, we want additionally to do more. We want to make our voice heard, that we don't agree with what is going on. That's okay. But don't get sucked into it without cultivating your stillness. Otherwise you end up seeing, you develop a phobia and you see ghosts everywhere. You cannot keep your balance. So make sure you still do the homework as we mentioned. And then you can, if you feel this inner calling again through intuition, yes, go on, do your activities to make, to expose, you could say, that which is not life supporting. If this is your inner calling, go for it. So it's not mutually exclusive. So it pertains, these three activities I mentioned, they pertain to everyone, whether they become activists or not, or whether they just follow along, but this they should do. And they should state what they want and not. What kind of society you want to build? You have to have an idea. This is energy. So that's the second layer. Third layer, as we mentioned, you're the creator of all there is. If you can come to this realization of oneness, nothing of this first, second layer will affect you. And you will, because you're physically there, affect the collective, of course, in a good way. And you might be a person that all the souls feel attracted to get inspiration, guidance, perhaps, like this. So obviously, this is where humanity as a race is moving to that third layer experience. That would be truly a civilized society. Mm-hmm. So this is, in short, my view of the three layers, and looking at the current situation in a bit rushed, but that's how I see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me it makes sense. I don't think it was rushed. It was very much, to me it came across as very detailed, organized, explained.
And when I was bringing it up, I saw books opening. We could go into this and into that, but we don't have time. It's enough. And I hope this serves as an inspiration, because don't get lost in all kinds of revelations. Don't get lost in, let's say, revelations of this was manipulated, this is manipulated. Don't get lost in that either. Don't get lost in the official narrative, in the fear. It's important. And the important thing is, start working on yourself within. This is what nature as a whole, or you could say, this is what is being pressed on humanity. Work on within. This is the struggle again on the second layer, in the collective consciousness, the first three chakras, control, etc. First, second, third. This is at the moment the situation. And when humanity gets through this is like a quantum jump in evolution. If humanity goes through this in a positive way, it's an opportunity. It's like a door, and one can seize it, a shortcut, you could say. Although from the oneness perspective, there are no shortcuts because time is differently experienced there.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I say it. And if it's not taken, if the opportunity is not taken, then yes, then humanity needs longer. Perhaps even a few hundred years, who knows, till it gets there again. You don't know that.
I hope not.
It could be just a few years longer. It could be a few hundred years. You don't know. And then one continues from there. But this is the door. Seize it individually for each. Seize it right now. Don't waste your time staying only on Facebook, YouTube, etc. Do something within. It's in the end of the day, the media, social media, whatever, the endless discussions will not bring you anywhere. Yes, you need to have your opinion. You need to form an opinion. Yes, you cannot stay on the fence. You have to work on that connection, but you have to go within. You have to cultivate that aspect. This is the time when the mass of this is doing it, then it's game over. It means the collective consciousness is saturated so much with this experience that non-life supporting activities cannot be dictated any longer or pursued any longer. It's not resonant with that, with what the collective consciousness wants or experiences. So this will be the way out. And perhaps one last thing I would like to say about these global meditations. One has heard about those global meditations. There's World Meditation Day on this date, on that date. And then you have maybe in the year a few. But what happens in between is a big deception. And we haven't even talked about what are they doing on the meditation day, if that is effective or not. But think about this. Going within is a matter of everyday activity. It's not, oh, let's do one in June. And then hope the world changes. Forget about it. Big illusion.
Yeah.
And yes, maybe I stand on some people's toes here, perhaps, who are invested into this. And I tell to them, it's a well-meant activity, but it cuts too short. It falls far too short. It's just not enough. This is too little, too late, you could say. You need to do far more. Everyone needs to get into this process right now. That is what brings change. Not one world meditation in June and the next one in August and the third one in November and whatever. Forget it. It's wishful thinking. And this has to be done every single day. Yes, then it catches on. And preferably with some efficient methods that really bring you into the stillness. Not looking at, just to maybe sounds provocative, to look at the candle and think, now it happens. It's not going to work. So this is, I wanted to add that at the end. And just put an additional perspective on that too.
Thank you.
All right. So I hope this has helped. If you have more questions, let me know on this.
I don't have sincerely questions, but I did note things down while you were talking. When you were saying like trust, trust
Yes,
others, it is, I speak now from my own experience. It is also trusting yourself
yes,
that you make the right decision, trusting yourself that you are able to do actually what you want to do. I hear still people in my own environment saying like, I don't trust others. And the same person saying like, well, if I will be the other person, I will not trust myself either. So you cannot trust others when you're not able to trust yourself. It always starts with yourself.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a good observation. And naturally, it's part of what we said in collective consciousness, the work of this third chakra, trust issues,
Yeah.
trust in life, control issues. Naturally, this is you. Now, think of this from the oneness perspective. If you're the creator of all there is, and you don't trust yourself, what are you?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the struggle right now.
Mm,
So trust in yourself. Culture is also intuition.
yeah.
It's connected, and when you do that, you have more trust in life, naturally.
Mm,
But you don't. When you have that, it doesn't mean you believe everything that is out there. No, you can navigate through, guided by your intuition,
yeah.
to differentiate that is half truth or this is this. I don't go for this and this is not that. You just learn to navigate through instantly. You just know it because you're not connecting purely with the information on the intellectual layer. On the intellectual layer is so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But on the intuition layer, you see through um, systematic manipulations even.
Yeah.
So that gives you peace too. And when you trust yourself, it gives you peace. And the fear is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is gone.
Yeah.
So it is all connected. Yeah.
It's discerning. It is not judging, but it's discerning. Is this
Yes.
correct or not?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
choose.
The judgment comes when you're not connected with yourself. Because when you're connected with yourself more, heart opens, compassion is there, patience is there with
That's it.
those who might not have had this experience.
Would you mind to repeat that? Because on my end, the connection on your side started to disrupt a little bit.
Where was it cut off?
Right at when you were talking about judgment. So when I just finished.
Yes,
Right here.
judgment is a reflection. If somebody is very judgmental, it's a reflection of they're not happy within themselves.
Oh, yeah.
That means they're not quite connected either with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there are trust issues within themselves.
Yeah.
And they naturally don't trust life. So then judgmentalism comes.
Yeah.
So if you're more connected with yourself, more peace, naturally the heart starts to open. When the heart starts to open, compassion grows. And what also grows is you don't need to defend your viewpoints anymore. You have your viewpoint because you're guided by this. You have the experience. And if somebody shares it or not, it's not your concern anymore. You live your reality in peace. And you stopped judging others. Why? Heart is sufficiently developed to feel compassion and you feel a connectedness. You can be friends with somebody who is in fear. You have compassion for that person without doing their homework. They still have to go through their process, but you stopped judging them. Heart is like as it grows, you just keep loving and loving, and even if they're in the state of fear. So so it's connected.
Mm. I want to share something else also from my own experience, and please let me know when I've understood it incorrectly. So when I grew up in the Netherlands, for me, the culture was very harsh. And I believe because I was open from 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, so I was open from here, but I was closed on the bottom from the first to and the third. Because I want to escape, because I found the culture harsh, or I could not, it was for me very difficult to hear someone's opinion. It was not because I do not like to hear someone's opinion, but it was because of the tone, it was because of the sound, it was of you are not correct. So these were all opinions from other people telling me that I was wrong. So from my perspective, from my experience, was that I was trying to escape. So I was going more in this direction. So then I heard that the Netherlands is because of the experience, the time that I went through regarding the war. Like you had the First World War, the Second, and then there was some other wars in between. I've been told that the chakras 1, 2, 3 are open, but then it was closed from the fourth onwards. So then you had a lot of people saying, or not saying, but a lot of people living in a way as in, do not ask any questions, just do whatever you have been told. Please do not be happy, do not have any joy. So this for me was like, looking back at it from this point of view, I actually can laugh about it because I see that that might have caused me some struggles in the past when I was there, when I was still a child. What I want to say is that even when you're living your heart, and you were talking about the first, the second, and the third chakra, and the people who are aware, but they still carry around fear. So the fear is in one of those, most likely in the third chakra. It is important for people who are aware to actually go in their first, second, and third chakra to ground yourself, because otherwise you are, you try to escape to a better world in your head, or actually not being here on the planet, not being there on Earth.
Yes. Growth of a person has to involve the balance of all the chakras naturally. And it's a bit like a snake. If you balance the lower chakras, naturally the upper ones get enlivened as well. If the lower chakras are imbalanced, it affects the upper ones as well. So it's all interconnected. And in your case, when you felt that you don't resonate with, let's say, the society values or programming, that is for a child a struggle. And if that child finds the experience of peace, it can cope with it better. That means, yes, the grounding, but the key is within. To get into this moment of now, the presence or stillness, have that experience cultivated. And then whatever the society brings, one stops judging it either. One may agree to it or not, but you will navigate through it more easily. Therefore, we say, for a parent, the best gift you can give to a child is an upbringing that cultivates this experience of inner peace, that they have that direct connection within, and their cultivation of intuition. That makes them independent, sovereign citizens, fully connected. This is the best gift a parent can do. It's like if a parent focuses on that they go to bed in time, that they wash their hands, that they go to school, that they eat healthy, and all of that is all fine. But they are leaving out the vast potential within the growing up child. It's like as if it's ignored. What kind of human is that later? So this is the dilemma that has plagued humanity for thousands of years. Not to attend and culture your vast potential. It's time now, right now, as we said, this is the time. And what you could say is this crisis not only has a potential to accelerate these control agendas, but actually it has the potential to accelerate evolution, making people act now rather than in a few years. Start looking within, go that path, learn something that helps you to experience the stillness, the now. And if this is happening on a mass scale, it doesn't need 100% of society. It can be a small subsection, 5%, even 1%. Then you have a mass awakening, because everything is interconnected and it will influence, that group will influence the rest. So this is, so you could say this crisis could also be used as an accelerator for this, for the evolution of humanity or society. It could be used as an accelerator, but it's up to the individual to make the choice right now, which way you go. That's why one cannot sit on the fence any longer. If you sit on the fence, you will drift into being treated as, quote, a sheep, and be manipulated. You can't stay out of it. So this is the moment to really choose. So in that sense, if that happens, this crisis right now has accelerated humanity. Everything comes to a stop. And out of this, acceleration. That's the potential right now. This is beautiful. But it has to be taken up by every single person to really reflect on this. And when that happens, beautiful. Yeah. So in the end, it's actually, you could say, if one looks back, let's say society comes out well of this. You look back 20 years from now, and you say, that was a heck of a roller coaster. But it was a heck of a good time because we all awakened. We all awakened. The parents awakened and naturally passed this on to their children like this. And you could say, I was there. I was there in that time. I was part of this. That is the thrill. That is the thrill. So we can take a lot of positives out of this. Yeah. We started with the purely 3D analysis. And yeah, of course, if you have to mention all the control agendas, it's a headache. But you don't need to stay on that layer alone. It's good to recognize it. But you don't dwell on it, go further. That's why we added this layer 2 and 3.
Yeah, I recognize that when we had the lockdown, I think we were almost like on a global lockdown. It was so quiet, but I mean quiet in the head, quiet outside. And then we had the discussion, or not a discussion, we were actually talking about this. And then you said something very nice. You were like, because everybody actually stopped doing the work, what they normally would do. They're inside, they're quiet, so there are less thoughts.
Yes, you could see that in that moment, it's like a break in the routine, a break in habitual thinking. And that always provides an opportunity, not just reassessment, but an opportunity to growth, inner growth that brings the next step of evolution. It's not AI. That's a delusion. It's not AI that brings the next step of evolution in humanity. It's making really use of your potential that you are truly cosmic. That's the jump. The rest is kids' play. Compared, when compared. Everything changes with that jump. So that is, that's the opportunity.
I hope we
and
will.
remember this. Yeah, and remember this is still theater play. Humanity is in that phase on the theater stage, the 3D perspective, the story. If you zoom out, the noise gets less and less. And if you zoom out further, you realize that this reality is just a point in infinity. And you are all there is. You could zoom in into other realities, but just to say, if you take it as a perspective, you zoom out. Oh, you can even within 3D, think about this, within 3D, you zoom off the planet. Less and less noise, suddenly stillness. You see the solar system, beautiful. And then you zoom out further, it emerges into a golden ball, there's just the solar system as a point. And then you realize this is embedded in a beautiful galaxy that hums. It's humming, it has its own frequency. It's actually having the galaxy as a whole is actually a consciousness. And you feel that, what majestic perspective. Then you zoom out further. Where do you go from there? You zoom out further, you see collectives of galaxies, clusters, one symphony. You zoom out further, and suddenly you realize it's a whole universe. It's like a ball, golden ball within the infinity of silence, humming its song in silence. Now, from that perspective, it's like quite far what happened on that planet over there.
Yeah.
It's tremendous, but this is a potential for humans to experience. So that's quite good that this came out in this way.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. There is one question that just came up. What would you advise people to do who are afraid or have fear to look into their own fears?
Yes. Now, these fears can be motivated from different sources. It could be ancestral, it could be karmic growing up, it could be different things. We don't need to go there. But the experience of stillness is the experience that brings you out of your mind-body programming construct. It brings you out of your individuality experience. Let's say there is a person called Frankie, and that person carries a lot of fear. So this is not any of you viewers who are called Frank. It's not you. Okay, it's just an example. So you have a person called Frankie. a lot of fear for whatever reason. Now this person takes up something that helps him with the experience of deep stillness, presence, silence. It's as if he transcended his individuality into something else. What is that something else? His cosmic nature that he didn't have an experience before. And he might intellectually not even consider this as his nature, but he tapped into something. Deep silence. Where is the fear? It's gone in that moment. It doesn't exist. It's not even remembered. It's just the overwhelming experience of stillness. So what happens then? Now he comes back. But this has done something to him, even on a physiological level, on brain organization level, heart level, has done something. And to whatever little degree the fear is less in him, repeated experience of that stillness alone will melt that fear away eventually. But he can do some other things to help, to assist this. There are other ways of approaching this through energetics work, because fear is associated with certain things in the body. Energy work on that person can help to like release those scars in the energetic fields of the person. That would assist the process. Then there are other ways. When a person is in fear, he feels himself very disconnected. So give connecting experiences. So any activities that promote connecting helps him gradually. So there are different ways. I would even go as far as saying laughing, systematic laughing, seeking out experiences of real laughing, or even laughing yoga, that systematically culture the experience of laughing to trigger a release. In the moment, laughing is very powerful because in the moment when you laugh, there's no fear.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's no control because it's connected. There's no control. Why? You're laughing. You're in the middle of laughing. You don't control anything. What you actually do is you flow. And that's a powerful experience. Has again physiological effects on the system that help melt the fear away eventually. So you can approach it from different sides at the same time. But the most powerful is go to the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, to that stillness. Because you step out of your programming construct and experience directly your cosmic nature. But all these other activities, it's encouraged to pick up something. Once you have recognized that you really have a lot of fear, well, do something. Or it's a choice again. You can say, okay, I stay a little bit longer in this state because it has a certain degree of entertainment. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. As simple as that. Why would somebody view, let's say, a fearful movie? It's for them entertainment, the thrill, the adrenaline rush, and this and that. It's entertainment. So if they want to stay longer entertained in a state of fear, okay, we don't judge them. It's anyway. It's a 3D stage experience. But if somebody has a desire to experience more of himself and move beyond fear, these will be the steps I would recommend naturally. You might have seen that none of it involved psychology or psychoanalysis, but it could be one or the other case that might need a little bit of that too. That depends on the individual case, but in general they don't. You can bypass the meaning layer, go straight to the experience.
Mm. Thank you very much for explaining and giving us an outlook on what is going on in the world from different layers. I do not have any questions. Do you?
Yes, it's fine. It's that's all there is in the end, silence.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. That's all there is in the end. Just
Mm.
that. And any questions come to an end.
Yeah.
So it's actually perfect.
Super. Thank you very much again. Patrick, I'm sure we will see each other again for another topic or and in another video. What will come up, I do not know. Time will tell us.
Yes, I get an inkling now. Yes.
Oh, really?
Well, not exactly what topics, but I get an inkling, yeah, there will be more videos.
Nice. Nice. Is there
Beautiful.
anything else that you would like to say?
Well, for anyone who just happens to stumble upon this video, we have done other videos, have done other presentations. That's one thing. If you want to know more about what I've been doing, and Cindy will put below the website address. It's livingonenessremembered.com. This gives more information about what I've been doing, what I'm offering, workshops, consultations, and so on. If you are interested in that. So other than that, I hope everyone gets started experiencing. It's the time is now, experiencing the stillness, and move from there, and you have in the biggest way society.
Yeah. Thank you for your time also and for sharing your knowledge. For the viewers, we hope that you have enjoyed this conversation, or at least the teachings from Patrick. There is a playlist on my channel where you can see all our other videos we have done on sacred crystal sound, sacred auto tuning, talking about QHHT and so on. Patrick also has his own YouTube channel. If you would like to visit and see his channel, there will be other videos uploaded there too.
Yes, that's a very young channel.
That
I
doesn't
merely
matter.
got started with this, so with this YouTube thing. So, but yeah, there are some up there. Yeah.
Yeah, at least it's a start. You started it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we wish you all a very nice day, evening, and we hope we see you again soon. As yeah, with the next
Very
video.
good.
Yeah, and in the
Was a
meantime,
pleasure. Was a pleasure, and I hope everyone they can benefit from this, find some inspiration, and then let's move from there.
yeah, super. And
All
yeah,
the best.
anytime. Take care. See you.
Bye.
Bye.